welcome to Queers Quills, the official podcast. I'm audiobook narrator Kirt Graves. Every episode, I invite an attending author or narrator to join me for a one-on-one conversation about their lives and their art, so attendees and readers from across the world can get to know them not only as professionals, but as people. Joining me today is Matt Wardell. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Writing as MA Wardell, Lambda Literary Award nominee Matt writes spicy queer rom-coms. His goal is to tell adult gay love stories with a diverse representation of flawed and damaged characters who find healing through love. Matt loves rom-coms and has always wished for better representation, so he's writing the stories he wishes existed. The queer men in his stories are flawed and messy. Helping them find their HEA is Matt's passion. He lives near the ocean with his husband and 2 cats. He drinks way too much iced coffee because he's just that gay. Do you have an iced coffee to hold up? No?
Well, not at this time of the day.
And I have to say he also has excellent taste in audiobook narrators. So...
I don't know what you're talking about.
So happy to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I don't think we've ever been on a video chat.
No. Even in virtual world, this is our first time meeting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's I feel like I know you obviously because we have emailed quite a bit, but also I've seen you on. I have watched your videos that you do with what's it called? It's like the narrator's roundtable. Is that am I yeah. Oh, I said it right. So I feel like I feel like I know you already. I love those videos.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Yes, that's one of my other podcasts. I'm doing 3 at the moment. How dumb is that?
You said it, not me.
I did. So, but on this podcast, we're focused on getting to know you before we all get together for a big party in May. So I will ask you what I'm asking everyone at the beginning of this podcast. Tell me more about your author origin story. How have you ended up where you are now?
So I have a maybe a little bit of a unique author origin story because I'm not a person who, a lot of times when I hear authors tell their journey of how they became a writer, they always say something like, I always wanted to be a writer. And when I was in 2nd grade, I wrote my first book. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no, that's great.
I mean, I don't make fun of them with that voice, but I do. Yeah, I've heard them say that.
I wasn't trying to make fun of anyone. I'm just, I'm with a professional narrator, so I'm trying to narrate my story. But everyone has that kind of I've always wanted to be a writer and it's been my lifelong dream. That is not my case at all. I did not want to be a writer. It was never anything that I really thought about. The one thing I will say, and I've said this before, I have been told my whole life that I am a natural storyteller. I was always I was a teacher for many, many years. Shocking, I know. And I was always there. I know. Well, some people don't know. I was always the one in the teacher's room that would tell stories, sometimes about the kids or myself, my life, or, when I was little and I went to sleepaway camp, I was always telling stories, and people would always tell me that I was a good storyteller, but I never connected the dots that I could, maybe write a book. And so I was and am still a big reader, although I actually read less now that I'm an author than I did before, but that's another story. I just don't have time. And plus I'm looking at words all day long. So do a lot of audiobooks.
Me too.
I love it.
Actually,
I love an audiobook.
That's my primary mode of reading.
Oh, it is? I didn't know that.
Other than what I have to do for work, that's my primary mode of reading books.
Okay.
Because, I don't want to sit down and read a book.
I mean, there are some books that I want to read that they don't have, the people don't have an audiobook for, so I will read the book. Mm-hmm. But if there's an audiobook, that's my go-to. So I was a big reader, and there were things about queer romance, especially MM romance, that I loved. And there's so many authors that I love. Many of them are going to be at Queers Quills. And it's exciting for me that I'm going to as a reader to meet Kira Andrews, who I know you've narrated a bunch of her books. I adore her books. She's one of my top faves. And I'm I've chatted with her, like, on social media,
Right.
like in direct messages, but I've never met her. So like, that's going to be a fangirl moment for me. So anyway, I was reading lots of romance, and there were just certain things about some books that I was like, I want, like, it's a lot of coming out stories, like a lot of guys are coming out. And that's valid. Like, a lot of people do come out. I mean, we all have to come out at some point, right? But like, as a person who is not a younger person, I'm not in my 20s, let's just leave it at that. That I was like looking for more. Like, I was looking for more adult stories that are not necessarily coming out stories. And I was also looking for a different how do I say it the right way without like getting canceled? I was looking for like a different representation in the spice. The books that I was reading fell into two categories. Now, this is like years ago, right? Like, things have changed. At the time, you could get a rom-com that was either closed door or like, rom-coms at that time were, like, people thought Red, White, and Royal Blue was like really spicy.
Right.
I mean, it's not, but like, that's what, for a rom-com, that was pretty spicy. Or you were reading books that, and I won't name authors because they're people that I like and I like their books, but they're not rom-coms, right? Like, they're super, not dark, but just very angsty, right? Like, someone died, or, like, like it's like they're sad, right? Like, it's like the anti-rom-com. I don't know what you call that. Just a romance, I guess. And those were those get pretty spicy. And I was like, well, I want that level of spice, but in a rom-com. And I was, at the time, now there are people now who are doing it. Like, I'm not like the only person that's ever done this, but at the time I wasn't seeing a lot of that. And so I was like, I want that. I want a book that feels like, warm and fuzzy and sweet, and funny. A rom-com, but then when the spice hits, it's like really spicy. Because the straight folks do that in their rom-coms. So why can't we do it? So I was like, well, I'm gonna write a book. And I will say, I do want to say this because I think sometimes people think, I mean, I can't speak for people, but I get the vibe that sometimes people think, I'll just write a book. Like, how hard could it be? It's really freaking hard. Are we supposed to curse on this podcast, or no cursing?
I think we're okay.
Okay. It's really fucking hard to write a book. Okay. And my first book, I want people to hear this because I think people don't know, took me years to write. And books, like, I was reading craft books on writing. I can't even tell you how many classes. This was during COVID. So like, everything was on Zoom. But I took probably 7 or 8 writing courses where I worked on the book and workshopped the book and did character work. And I, as I'm reading my own books, like, cause for me, gay boy with imposter syndrome, I was like, if I'm going to write a book, I want to write a good book. Like, I don't want it to be bad. So I need to learn how to do it. And so it took me years. And even now when I write a book, every time I sit down to write a book, I think, can I do this again? It's hard. Writing is hard. But, after a few books, you start to think, okay, I can do it. So that's what got me writing.
That's got to be the educator in you too, right? The desire to know how to do something well before putting it out in the world, to go through a process of learning
and take a class
to give you confidence.
And I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was like, I haven't taken a class in a hot minute. I think I need to take another class. Like, I think it should be good for me to be in that environment where people are looking at your work. And I mean, it's kind of what we do as indie authors when you have like your beta readers and they give you feedback, but a classroom situation is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So that's how I became a writer.
I take classes all the time. Like,
yeah,
I shouldn't say all the time.
They're fun.
At least a couple of times a year. You go in, you get a tune-up.
Right. And that's exactly how I feel.
Even if the feedback is like, pat on the back, you're doing a good job, we really like it. It's like, okay, That's good to know.
It's still
like
helpful.
I can move forward with confidence. But yeah, I work with different people all the time just to get different perspectives. So you saw a gap in the market. You didn't want coming out. You didn't want coming of age. You just wanted coming.
That is going to be on a t-shirt, and I'm going to sell it, and I'll give you 2%.
Okay.
No coming out, no coming of age, just coming. I love that. It's true. And like, I love those books, but like, at a certain point, my first queer books that I read were YA books, because that's what they're, that's kind of what you find. They're very accessible, more accessible. Like I think the first book I ever read that had a queer character in it, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 99% sure it was Becky Albertelli, Simon versus the Homo sapiens. And I love that book. And I still love that book.
Explicitly about a gay character, yeah.
And it's a coming out book because it's YA, and he's in high school and all of that. And I love that book. And then that book kind of got me to other books. But even Red, White, and Royal Blue, and the last thing I'm going to do is say anything bad about Red, White, and Royal Blue, because that will get you canceled. I love that book, but it's certainly at least like new adult, right? Like maybe it's not YA, but those characters are young. They're like early 20s. And a lot of romance, not all of it, but a lot of it focuses on that age, right? Like 20 to 25. And so that doesn't interest me as a person who's way past. And I feel like I want stories that show like where you can go, right? Like to read a romance about characters who aren't coming out, like they're just out, like that's not part of their story. That's important to me. So that's what I'm trying to do.
And those YA stories, I know from my own experience, like there was a long time when I still related to and or yearned for the experiences I was reading in YA stories. Because in many cases, they were stories I couldn't have had, but boy, did it sound like fun to have that kind of high school or college experience. But you do pass a threshold at a certain point. I turned 40 this year, and it was like, why does YA appeal to me the same way it did even 2-3 years ago? And do I want to seek out that work in the same way I was before? And it's like, I'm getting just far enough away from those years that I'm not as interested in reliving them with every book.
I think it can be both, right? Like it doesn't have to be like, I am a huge Heartstopper fan for many reasons, right?
Yes.
Love Heartstopper. The books, the show I've seen, and I love that as well. But I read those books when they came out, actually when they were online, and I had the same reaction that probably a lot of people in our age bracket did, which is, like this is what I wish could have been my experience. Like I wish this could have been what I have experienced at that age. Even though there's still some like bullying and stuff in that book, but like ultimately it's a happy story. And I remember when I was reading those books thinking like, gosh, I wish there was something like that for adults, like where you could read, and it's sweet and it's inclusive and it's, not everybody looks a certain way. That's another thing. Again, no shade to my friends, because I'm friends with all of them, but like the majority of the books that I was consuming, all of the love people, the main characters who were like falling in love, they all look the same. They're all white, young, fit. They look like they never had a piece of cake or a bowl of pasta, and they live in the gym. Even though probably in the book they never talk about going to the gym. They never
go to the gym in the book.
Right.
But they all have abs.
But they all have abs and big muscles. And let me be clear about something. I love pretty boys. Like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with hot guys. However, I am a gay man who has a lot of gay male friends, and we mostly don't look like that. Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Over here in Wisconsin, all the gay people look like Hollywood. They stepped right out of a movie. No, so, yeah, like, they don't. Yeah, They don't look
that
like
was
our
some,
experience of a
they
gay
don't
life.
look like normal people. I mean, there's a
And that's
reason.
not an romance thing. That's a romance
It's a romance thing.
That's,
Yeah, you're right.
like the women in romance are often equally as unattainably attractive with little to no effort,
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
But so that was something that was important to me when I was planning what I was going to write. Like, I want to show men who don't always look like that. And they are still attractive men who are sexy and worthy of intimacy and love, right? Like, that is a core value that I have. And if you look at the books that I've written so far, that's who they are. Well, you've read them all.
I'm very familiar.
I mean, we've got bigger guys. We have bald. I mean, people thought it was like radical that I had a bald main character. I was like, do you know how many bald men exist? And like, they're hot. Like, bald men are hot. But they just don't ever get a love story. Like, they're not usually typically featured. So, it's going to sound like a stupid thing to say maybe, but I love men. And when I say I love men, I like them big. I like them little. I like them bald. I like them with long hair. I like them black. I like them white. I like them every color. Like, so I want to celebrate all of them.
I get it. I get it. We've wrapped a lot of my questions into the one answer to the one question. So I'm going to just skip to, like, if somebody was coming to your work for the very first time, where would you want them to start? Do you want them to go to book number 1?
Typically, that's where people start. When it's a series, people start with book 1. You don't have to start with book 1. A lot of people have started with book 2 because it's a holiday book, and that's kind of, people love that. And I don't know why people love that second book. I mean, it is like,
I don't get it. Why do people like my book? It's
no, I don't mean it like that. I'm just saying, like, that couple is probably the most popular couple. I mean, people like Marvin and Olin a lot too, but but Selvin and Theo, it's like visceral what people feel about them. So, and look at them. Like, they're not a traditional looking couple. So I don't know. I don't care. Just buy something, read it. It doesn't matter.
Just don't steal it and read it.
Don't steal it.
Preferably
but most people
in
start
audio.
with the first book. I don't know. I heard the narrator's like, not so great.
He's a monster, but he's pretty good. All right. Are you ready to play our little game here?
Gosh, I hope. I think.
Okay. All right. So the rules of our game are simple. I have a deck of cards, and on each card is a question. These questions aim to learn more about you. Some are biographical, some are hypothetical, some are just plain silly. But I'm not picking which questions you will answer. Fate is. So I will deal 3 cards every round, and you choose one, and whatever card you pick, you agree to answer. But you have a couple of outs. So if a question comes along that you don't want to answer, you have 2 opportunities to switch things up. You can turn the tables on me one time, forcing me to answer the question. You can also discard a personal question in favor of answering a bookish question from the white deck. But you must then answer whatever question gets dealt. And, some opinions about books can be controversial. So,
all right,
you never know. But it is another out for you. So, all right, I've been kind of quietly shuffling the cards here during our whole conversation. So we're ready to deal 1, 2, or 3. Which do you choose?
I choose 3.
3. Oh, this is too perfect. If you had to teach a class on one thing, what would you teach?
Jeez. That's actually really funny because I do teach still, like a little bit. I teach teachers,
I was just about to say, you teach teachers, don't you?
I don't do it as much. Like, I've kind of been weaning off of it, but I'm actually doing it. What's today? Monday? On Wednesday, I'm teaching all day. So mostly this is going to sound like a silly thing, but the thing that I love to teach is I love to teach people about writing. Now, when I teach teachers, I'm usually teaching them how to teach writing, like how you teach kids to write. But I think even like now, as an adult who has written many books, I love to talk about the writing process and, it's different for everyone, but what works for me, what doesn't work for me. So yeah, I would love to teach about writing.
That's awesome. I don't know that I've ever revealed this to you, but did you know that my first exposure to you as a writer was not when you messaged me?
I'm afraid to know what it was.
For many years, I was a speech and debate coach, so I had a lot of friends who were teachers, and one of them one day sent me a message saying, there's this instructor for teachers who I know who wrote a book.
That is so funny.
He's gonna self-publish, and you should really like look at contacting him and seeing if you can narrate it. And I looked at that message and I was like, that's not how that works.
And it's not how it works.
I don't go to a first-time author and be like, please pay me thousands of dollars to narrate your book. That's not how that's not going to happen. It's first time. Like no. And then like a few months later, you sent me a message and I was like, why does this name sound so familiar? And I went back and looked at my friend's message and I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy my friend told me to go
someone that I
look
had
up.
like that had been in a session with me or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, I mean,
I'll tell you afterwards who it was, but
okay. So, like, do I know the person?
I don't know who you know, bitch.
All right. Well, because so I mean, without like,
I don't know
giving
how
too
well
much
you know the people who get in your class thingies.
I mean, so sometimes I would go to these like big conferences, and might be a room of like, it could be 100 to 200 people in the room, and I'm presenting like that. Or sometimes I would do things where I would like go to a school and I might even just be working one-on-one with the teacher. Yeah, there's some other things that I'll tell you after as well.
Okay.
But I don't want to say it on here because I don't want people like digging,
Sure. Totally. We'll kiki after. All right. Next round. Card 1, 2, or 3.
I'm going to go with 1.
Which living person do you most despise?
Oh, this is going to sound like a pageant answer, but I really try hard not to hate anyone because I don't think it's productive. There are people that I don't like and I don't like what they're doing and all of that. But, I mean, the easy answer would be like to say the current president of our country. I can't think of anyone.
That's a worthy answer.
But even him, like I've said this to my husband, and people might think that I'm nuts for saying this. Even him, I said to my husband the other day, I said, I don't actually think that he has all these horrible feelings that he says he does. I think he's just doing what he thinks he's supposed to say. Like he's a puppet, like,
sure.
Oh,
but is that better or worse?
Well, it's not. I don't know. It's not better or worse. He's still doing it. It's probably worse. Maybe. I don't know. I think it is a little bit better because it makes me feel like there's a hinge of some kind of hope that like maybe he could turn it around, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not expecting that.
No,
I don't think he hates gay people or queer people or even trans people. I think he's doing the things that he's doing because that's what his party and
to hold on to influence and power.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which is maybe worse.
I think it's worse. I would rather meet a sincerely devout hater of queer people than one who's like, oh, actually, I'm fine with you. But in public, I'm going to do everything I can to take away your rights and be totally fine with it.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's sincere or not. It's still horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. So no shortage of people to despise at this point in time. So, but just a healthy amount. Don't let it consume your mouth. Don't let it consume your life.
No.
All right.
I really try to stay away from the news.
All right. 1, 2, or 3. 2. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Oh, I think my greatest achievement is, this is going to sound sappy, but it's true. Like, as a teacher, the influence that I had on like hundreds and hundreds of kids. I taught little kids, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, and I have been invited to weddings. I have been contacted by students who are adults that, it's like you never forget your kindergarten teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was a fun teacher. And that is something that it's like a legacy that you have when you have that impact on kids. I mean, I guess now I'm having an impact with books that I write. So that's kind of nice too. And now I'm changing my answer. I get messages from people, especially when I get messages from like queer men who say, I've never read a book like yours before, or I've never felt seen so much. I had someone I was at an event the other night at a bookstore, and someone came up to me. They were talking about Vincent from Napkins, and they had never read OCD representation done like that in a book
Mm.
before, and what it meant to them. And I'm sitting there sweating, like after talking on a panel and everything, and I'm like, oh wow, like I don't even know what to say. I really, I just say thank you. There's nothing really I can say. So I could say other things. I'm proud of a lot of things that I've done.
That's good. That's good. But the card asked for one. So, card one.
It's like, and you're done.
Card one, card two. Here's the point of this podcast is to get people comfortable with like coming up and talking to you. So he has more. He has more to say, guys. Feel free to go up and ask him. All right, card one, card two, or card three. Three. If you can instantly become one, what would you want to be an expert in?
Oh, like right now, I would want to be an expert on hockey because
Are
I'm
you
writing a hockey book.
romance?
And I am the opposite of an expert. I don't know what you call someone who's the opposite of an expert. An ignoramus. I don't know. Like I know nothing about hockey, so I'm having to like learn, and I don't want to really learn that much about it. So I'm just like, I'm actually changing the book so that I only have to know so much. But I would love to just be able to go boom.
Mm-hmm.
But this happens every time I write a book. There's something about that book that I didn't know much about all the things of the books that you've narrated, and I just had to.
Yeah. All right. Card one, card two, or card three?
What?
What do you value most in your friends?
Yeah. Good baking skills. No, I'm totally kidding. Although I do love that. I do have some friends
that could be on the list. Yeah.
I value friends. Like one thing that I learned, I remember I had a friend in college, and he was the first friend that I really felt like taught me, like you want to be friends with people who are rooting for you, like who are your biggest fans and who want you to succeed. And then of course you want to be that way for your friends as well. Like it's a two-way street. So that's something that I really value in friends, like that they genuinely care about you and they really want you to be successful and do well and do all the good things. And they're not jealous or any of that. Like they just want to celebrate you, and then you want to celebrate them.
That's a really great answer. I like that. Yeah.
I'll put it in a book.
Yeah. All right. Final round. Card one, card two, or card three?
Let's do two.
Card two. When you think about success, who comes to mind and why?
Oh, like a person? Oh gosh. That's hard. That's a hard question. When I think about success, who comes to mind and why? I would say when I think about success, I think about like my family. I think about my grandparents who have both passed at this point, but they came from like nothing and really worked hard to build a life and a family in like a new country. They were immigrants um and they did it. Like they did it. And like now, I'm obviously not the next generation, but then one after that, like that's success to me.
Yeah.
It's not about how much money you have or, to me, the most successful people are happy, and money ain't gonna make you happy. What is this? Mo money, mo problems. It's like
I've yet to find that out. So, but I would love to prove that. If somebody wants to give me a lot of money, I'd love to find out for myself. Well, thank you for playing my little game and being so truthful and forthright. And this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for Queers and Quills, the official podcast. If you're already signed up to attend Queers and Quills, make sure to say hello to me and Matt at the Oregon Convention Center in May. If you're not, follow Queers and Quills on Instagram to follow along with all the fun this year and get updates about ticket availability in the future. Until next time, I'm Kirt Graves, and I hope you're having a very gay day. Queers and Quills, the official podcast, is produced and hosted by Kirt Graves, in coordination with Mahogany Mail and Marley Valentine. All copyrighted material is shared with permission. Music and sound effects are licensed through Storyblocks Audio. All opinions shared are those of the individuals and do not reflect the positions or policies of any company or organization with which they happen to be associated.